Hello, I'm Billy Stewart, Assistant Pastor here at Solid Rock Tabernacle, 1325 Rudy Road in Alma, Arkansas. Thank you for joining us for the broadcast. I'd like to extend this personal invitation for you to come join us in one of our spirit-filled services. Our Sunday school begins at 9 a.m., our Sunday morning worship is at 10 a.m., and our Sunday evening worship is at 6 p.m. We also have an exciting Wednesday evening Bible study that begins at 7 p.m. Come join us, won't you? 1325 Rudy Road in Alma, Arkansas. Hey, we'll save a seat for you. And now, let's join our service already in progress.
What they're doing is talking about Nahor's family, and it really doesn't pertain to a whole lot of what we're doing. It's just genealogy stuff, so we're not going to worry about going through that. I'm not going to bore you with that tonight. So we're going to start with chapter 23 and verse number 1. All right? Now we're getting into the death of Sarah. And Sarah was 127 years old. These were the years of the life of Sarah. So she was 127 years old. Do you realize that Sarah is the only woman in the Bible whose age is recorded at death? She's the only woman in the Bible that records the age that she was when she died. Not even Mary's death. Mary's death's not even recorded in the Bible. So this gives you an idea of how highly she was regarded in the Bible. People really looked up to her. Nowhere in the Bible are we told to look to Mary, the mother of Jesus, as an example of a godly woman. Think about that. Nowhere in the Bible does it say, look to Mary, the mother of Jesus, as an example of a godly woman. Yet, twice we're told to look to Sarah as an example of a godly woman. Whereat, you ask? Good question. Isaiah 51, 1 and 2, and 1 Peter 3, 3 to 6 tells us to look to Sarah as an example of a godly woman. You would think that Mary would be, but she's not mentioned and not told. We're not told to look to her. We do look to her as an example of a godly woman, of course, but yeah, but it's not something that is actually specifically told to us as it is with Sarah.
That's weird because like Catholicism pictures her as like this almost supernaturally godly, caring woman.
Yeah, it's something that you would think that Mary, and like I said, we do look to her in that way, but the Bible doesn't tell us to. Okay, verse number 2. And Sarah died in Kirjatharaba. The same is Hebron in the land of Canaan, and Abraham came to mourn for Sarah and weep for her. So Abraham felt the loss of Sarah very deeply. He'd literally known her all her life. Yeah. They've been married for a long time, yes, but she was his half sister, so so she literally knew her all of her life. Eh? Huh? Yeah, Sarah was Abraham's half sister. Okay. But look at something. Abraham wasn't afraid to mourn this loss. We sometimes, especially in today's society, well, I don't know, not so much in today's society, but back in the days of like my dad and when I was growing up, the men didn't, you didn't show emotion, you didn't mourn, you didn't do that stuff. You were, you were tough. Now the men cry because they spilt their double soy milk lattes on the, or something. But anyway, it's, yeah, I guess that's a reason to cry for it, but it's yeah. But Abraham wasn't afraid to mourn his loss. And it was a great loss to him, yes. But he did not sorrow as those without hope. As we see in 1 Thessalonians 4:13. He set himself deliberately to all the functions of a mourner. His mourning was demonstrated in the appropriate way. This man of great faith, the friend of God, wept for the loss of Sarah's companionship. Now, when we weep for somebody, and we all weep for somebody who we lose. When we lose, whether we know they're a godly person and going to heaven or not, we weep. We cry about it. We don't cry because they're dead or for them, right? Who are we crying for? We're crying for ourselves because of our loss. It's not because of them. They're better off. We know, hey, that's great. That's wonderful. If we know they're on their way to heaven, that's wonderful. We shouldn't mourn those people. And the people that aren't making it to heaven, there's nothing we can do about that anyway. So there's no sense in mourning that either. But yeah, because you know where they're going. But we mourn because we've lost their companionship. You'll miss that companionship. And that's what Abraham was doing. He was weeping for the loss of the companionship of Sarah. And I had a pop-up that came up. I hate it when it does that. Okay? But there was nothing weak or unbelieving about the tears of this man of faith. He wasn't crying because he knew that Sarah was lost and was going to hell or anything. That's not why he was crying. He was crying because he wasn't going to have her companionship here on this earth. Even though he knew that he probably wouldn't be long for this earth anyway, he was still mourning at that loss. Okay. Now let's look at verses 3 through 9. And Abraham stood up before his dead and spake unto the sons of Heth, saying, I am a stranger and a sojourner with you. Give me a possession of a burying place with you, that I may bury my dead out of my sight. And the children of Heth answered Abraham, saying unto him, Hear us, my lord. Thou art a mighty prince among us. In the choice of our sepulchres bury thy dead. None of us shall withhold from thee his sepulchre, but that thou mayst bury thy dead. And Abraham stood up and bowed himself to the people of the land, even to the children of Heth. And he communed with them, saying, If it be thou mind that I should bury my dead out of my sight, hear me, and entreat for me to Ephron the son of Zohar, that he may give me the cave of Machpelah, which he hath, which is in the end of his field, for as much money as it is worth, he shall give it me for possession of a burying place amongst you. Now, Abraham didn't really feel as though he was a foreigner or a sojourner because he came from Ur. And that's what, when you read this, that's what you kind of picture it. He's there in Canaan, and because he wasn't born in Canaan, but he came from Ur, then yeah, he was a foreigner within the land. But that's not how he was feeling. That's not why he felt like a foreigner. It was because he recognized that his real home wasn't here. His real home was heaven. We say that so many times as Christians. Our real home isn't here. We're just traveling through this land. We're just passing through. That's all it is. We're not there's nothing more than us just passing through. So Abraham realized and recognized that his real home was in heaven. Moses knew this and commanded Israel to know this. David knew the truth of this as well. Now, Abraham had a particular burial place in mind. He had already been there. He had gone through when he was there earlier. He'd gone through and he'd seen that. And it was a cave in Machpelah. And it was in the land of Ephron, the son of Zohar. In his travels around Canaan, like I said, Abraham had early lived in this area. And it was the area that he had built the altar to God in chapter 13, if you remember that. When he came back, he built the altar to God. It was in this area. So he knew the cave that he was wanting. And he was willing to pay full price for it. He wasn't going to negotiate. He didn't want to negotiate. He says, whatever he asks me, I'll pay him. Doesn't matter. Whatever he asks me, I'll pay it. I saw or heard of a person one time that was really wanting a piece of property, and the people weren't willing to sell it. And the guy who wanted to buy it kept going up to him and says, sell it to me. And he says, no, I'm not going to sell it. I don't want to sell it. The guy says, I'll give you anything you want. He goes, no, I'm not going to sell it. And finally the guy kept pestering him. He said, I'll give you whatever you ask. And the guy finally said, okay, I'm going to get this guy off my back. And he gave him some outrageous number, well more than what the land was worth. And the guy said, okay. He pulled out his checkbook and wrote him a check and said, here you go. And the guy said, all right, that's fine. If you're going to be stupid enough to pay it, I'll be happy enough to accept it. Okay? But Abraham was willing to pay full price for this cave because he knew it, and that's where he wanted it to be. And verses 10 to 16. And Ephron dwelt among the children of Heth, and Ephron the Hittite answered Abraham in the audience of his children of Heth, even all that went in at the gate of his city, saying, Nay, my Lord, hear me. The field give I thee, and the cave that is therein. I give it thee. In the presence of thy sons of my people, I give it thee. Bury thy dead. And Abraham bowed down himself before the people of the land. And he spake unto Ephron in the audience of the people of the land, saying, But if thou wilt give it, I pray thee, hear me. I will give thee money for the field, take it of me, and I will bury my dead there. And Ephron answered Abraham, saying unto him, My Lord, hearken unto me, the land is worth 400 shekels of silver. What is that betwixt me and thee? Bury therefore thy dead. And Abraham hearkened unto Ephron, and Abraham weighed to Ephron the silver, which he had named in the audience of the sons of Heth, 400 shekels of silver, current money with the merchant. Now, this is a kind of a long roundabout way of just saying that they were negotiating. This is the way they negotiated in those times. And even some places in modern times in that area. This is the way they negotiate. As a gesture of kindness, the person who is selling the property may offer the property in question to the buyer as a gift. They say, I want to buy this land. Oh, you want the land? Here, I'll just give it to you. Okay? But the buyer, knowing what's going on, he insists on paying a price. So whatever the price is. Okay? So Ephron, the Hittite followed the cultural custom of bargaining. First, the seller offers to give the item, confident that the buyer is going to reject it and going to say, oh, no, I'm not going to do it. Right? And when the buyer refuses to receive it as a gift, the seller suggests a price. The price, which is usually claimed to be a fairly modest price for it, oh, well, it's only worth this. Yeah. This is all that it's worth. But it was really actually a lot higher than what it was. Okay? But this was understood to be a starting point. And from here, this is where the bargaining began. That's when they start going back and forth. You see, the seller wouldn't do it if he knew that if he said, oh, look, I'll just give you the land. If he knew that the person would say, oh, gee, thanks, and take it, he's not going to make that offer. Huh? Yeah, you don't do that nowadays. They go, oh, okay, thanks, appreciate it. No. But that was their custom of bargaining, and that's what he did. He said, oh, look, you want to bury your dead? Man, just no. Hey, I'll give it to you. Go ahead and do it. And Abraham said, no. I'm going to pay you for it. I want to pay you for it. So he says, okay, well, the land's worth 400 shekels of silver. All right, it says, and the way he did it was, if you look at it the way he did it, he says, it's only worth 400 shekels of silver. What's 400 shekels of silver between friends? I mean, come on. That's nothing. But actually, it was an exorbitant price. Yeah. But he's making it sound like, oh, man, that's not anything. Yeah. 400 shekels of silver? Yeah, it's. I haven't done it, but you can. I just have to look at how much a shekel of silver was at the time. You can look it up on. Just Google it and say how much is 400 shekels of silver worth. And I didn't do it. I should have, I guess. But anyway, the land wasn't worth 400 shekels of silver. Yeah.
It's $109.29 United States dollars.
Okay, $109 our money. Back in then, that would have been a lot of money. All right. Okay. Since when you consider that that like $1 is almost a year's wages, that's a lot of money. Okay. So. Okay, about $5,000 these days. Okay. Now he's saying, but that's nothing. What's that? What's 400 shekels of silver between friends? I mean, come on, it's nothing. But everyone was fully expecting Abraham to say, that's a little high. I tell you what, I'll give you 300. And then he could come back and say, oh, well, you're right, maybe it was, but 300 a little low, I'll take 350. And they'll meet in the middle. That's what he was expected. Instead, Abraham says, okay, counts out the money and hands it to him. No more bargaining, no more haggling back and forth. This is what you asked for, I'm giving it to you. I don't think it would not have mattered what the man asked for it. Abraham would have paid for it. He would have paid it. He wanted it, he would have paid it. But in doing so, Abraham shows how a follower of God should conduct business. Courteously, fairly, and prudently. Now, Abraham knew the price was a little high, but he also knew that, it wasn't so high that it was outrageous. It was in the realm of possibility there. Hey? Huh? Yeah, it wasn't like the price of groceries today. Eh? In not giving a counter offer to the suggested 400 shekels of silver, Abraham was actually remarkably generous in what he was doing. I said Ephron didn't expect that. Ephron was thinking, oh, he's going to come back with a counter offer, and we're going to haggle back and forth a little bit, and everything will be fine. It's just like, yeah.
It sounds like to me when he was saying what 400 shekels of silver between us. It kind of sounded like he's saying, it's only 400 shekels, why don't you just take it?
Yeah, and it's, that's basically what he's saying. Why don't you just take the land? It's only 400 shekels of silver. I mean, that's nothing. Just take it. That's what he was trying to get across. He's trying to say, oh, it's a very modest price. Don't even worry about it. But no, Abraham was saying, no, I'm going to pay you for it. But that was their custom. And it's just like we do today. Okay? We have, I think the best thing I ever heard was a car salesman one time when I went up, was looking at a car, and I asked him how much it was. And he says, asking like and taking. I said, asking like and taking? He says, yep, I'm asking this much. I'd like a little more. I'll take a little less. And I said, okay. And that's the way we do it. We'll put a price on something. We're trying to sell a car or something like that. We're going to put a price on that we know we're probably not going to get.
You're always going to ask.
Yeah.
You ask for more because you know they're going to try to.
You ask for a higher price because you know that they're going to offer you less. And when they offer you less, okay, you'll maybe get what you actually wanted in the first place. Okay? Yeah. You'd like a little more, but you'll take a little less for it. But that's you have a starting point, and that's where people, and that's what bargaining has been about, haggling has been about all along. Somebody asks too much, you offer too little, you meet in the middle. Maybe you'll get it to right about where it's actually supposed to be worth. Okay? But Abraham didn't do that. Abraham took the first offer or the first asking price and said, fine, I'll take it. Here's your money. He was being very generous. If somebody came up, if you were trying to sell a car and you say, I want $5,000, but you're only expecting to get $3,500 out of it, and somebody walks up with $5,000 and says, here you go, you're like, I can't sign this title fast enough and get it to you. Because that's more than I was expecting to get. And that's what Abraham did. He was generous in his dealings with this person, with Ephron. Verse 17. And the field of Ephron, which was in Machpelah, which was before Mamre, the field, and the cave which was therein, and all the trees that were in the field, that were in all the borders round it, were made sure. In other words, he gave him a deed for it. Unto Abraham for a possession in the presence of the children of Heth, before all that went in at the gate of his city. And after this, Abraham buried Sarah his wife in the cave of the field of Machpelah before Mamre, and the same is Hebron in the land of Canaan. And the field of the cave that is therein were made sure unto Abraham for a possession of a burying place by the sons of Heth. This text that we just read emphasizes that the land was transferred to Abraham and made his property by deed. Legally, completely, totally, it was his. Yes.
It says that it was made known to all who passed through the gate. Did they post that on the gate?
It was probably a post of the sale, yes, was probably done on the gate. Something like that, yes. But what it's emphasizing here is this is actually the only piece of property in the promised land that Abraham legally, as far as the laws of man, owned. Even though he'd been promised the whole land, This was the only piece that he legally owned. And it was deeded to him by man, and it was not only the promise of God. As I said, this was the only piece of land Abraham ever physically owned in the land that was promised to him. This showed that he was a man of great faith. That even though he owned this small portion of the land, he said, it's all mine anyway. Okay? That would be like my little piece of land up on Georgia Ridge. Say, I've got this little piece of land here, but I actually own Arkansas. Arkansas is all mine. I own it, you know. Some people would say, I wish you would do something with it if you own it, but this was the only piece of land. Even though all of it was promised to him, this was the only piece of land he ever owned. So Abraham buried Sarah in the cave. Interestingly enough, or maybe not really interestingly, but Isaac and Ishmael bury Abraham there. Sure. It's where Sarah's buried. Yes.
I know we're backtracking, but you know, I think like one of the reasons I would have to pay for that land is, if Abraham just takes the land from me for free, who's to say that he won't come back and then try to repossess the
Well,
land?
yeah.
Dead right there.
Yeah, that's possible too.
That's the way my mind is.
Yeah, that's possible too. He might have tried to come back and take it from him. But this is but Isaac and Ishmael buried Abraham here. Isaac and Rebekah were both buried there. Jacob buried Leah there. Joseph buried Jacob there. So the cave at Machpelah is the family plot. It became known as the Great Tomb of the Patriarchs. This is the tomb of the patriarchs where they were all buried at. Okay? So this gets us through chapter 23. Let's get into 24. Yes. By archaeologists? I believe it was. Yeah, I believe it was found by them. Yeah, I don't know if you can go visit it or not, but I believe it was found by archaeologists. I'm not sure. I'd have to look at that, but I think it was. But it is the cave. It's the tomb of the patriarchs, and it stayed that way it's been that way for years, and still is. I'm sure.
I mean, just to see all these, different. That would be so cool just to go there. The feeling you would have to go
Yeah.
to see all these things. Have you ever been there, Brother Stewart?
No, I haven't been there.
Pastor, have you? No.
No, it would be neat to go there, but you also look at this isn't. A lot of times we look at these things and think of them as, our cemeteries that you go in and it's a mausoleum, and on here lies Abraham and here lies Sarah and here. No, these are just caves.
Cave like the tombs. Is it something like
This was just a cave.
Oh, just a cave.
This was just a cave, and that's where they put them into, was just this cave.
At the time of Jesus, his mother and his father, and I don't remember if his brothers and whatever, they would dig out certain spots in the whole family would do that. But like Joseph's bones were in this container, Mary's bones was in this container, and it went on and on and on. In Jerusalem's where they found these bones, and they were engraved on the outside of these. They're just stone lifestyle deals with the
Yeah.
living.
Mhm.
You know,
Well,
and-
I mean,
They're-
they were in the caves, but they were actually inside something inside the cave, right?
Well, these were just Abraham or Sarah and Abraham and all them. They were just wrapped in grave clothes and laid in there, and that's where it was. In those times, though, especially in the times of Jesus, and in many countries even today, you don't buy a gravesite; you rent one.
Yeah. Yeah, I
You get to keep that gravesite for 5 years. You rent it for 5 years. After 5 years, they dig you up, they gather all your bones together, they put them into a sack or something, and then they store them somewhere else. And somebody else uses that gravesite for 5 years. Okay?
What?
Huh?
That's kind of evicted.
They do, but there are in other countries they do still do that.
It ain't bad enough they evict you while you're
You
in
know?
now they throw you out when
Yeah,
you're
yeah, evict you in the afterlife. But they do in countries they still South American countries do that. Huh? But as Pastor was saying, in those times they would take people when they had decomposed and there was nothing but bones. They would take the bones and they would put them in a container. It was called an ossuary, and they would put it in there and scribe the name on it, and they would put it up. A stone ossuary they would put up, and then everybody was lined up. Well, you could have the whole family lined up in something like this instead of having big, everybody still laid out with their bones fully there. Okay? So most of the time there was only a couple of places in the tomb that you could actually lay somebody out, and they were just laid there long enough to decompose, and then their bones were gathered up, put into a box, and stuck back in put in a little cubby hole. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And when I come, and I hope we got all the bones right, because when the rapture comes and we all start rising, I'd hate to have one bone from over here, one bone from over here. Hey, that's my bone. Wait, that's my thigh bone. Give it back. No. Okay.
Or an animal or something crawled in there.
Yeah.
Or something,
I'm missing a pinky toe.
Yeah.
Give me that back.
Hey, this hand's only got 4 fingers and 1 thumb. All right. Let's look at chapter 24, verses 1 through 4. And Abraham was old and well stricken in age, and the Lord had blessed Abraham in all things. And Abraham said unto his eldest servant of his house, that ruled over all he had, Put, I pray thee, thy hand under my thigh, and I will make thee swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and the God of the earth, that thou shalt not take a wife unto my son of the daughters of the Canaanites, among whom I dwell. But thou shalt go into my country and to my kindred, and take a wife unto my son Isaac. Now, the servant was probably Eliezer, that we saw before in Genesis chapter 15. Since he was described as the oldest servant of the home, it would only stand to reason, and looking back, it was probably Eliezer. He held that position of great honor and great responsibility. He was in charge of all the household. Now look what that verse said. Abraham's old. He's at the end of his life right now. And it said, the Lord had blessed Abraham in all things. Now think about this for a second. That was a short summary of Abraham's long life. Now, but I can think of no better eulogy than that. Can you imagine? That at your funeral, if somebody came up and said, you know what? All I can say is the Lord blessed him in all things. That's all that needs to be said. that's
Really good.
that's enough.
Yeah.
You know, that says it all.
Yeah.
Lord blessed him in everything.
Wow.
Hey, God told him that he would bless him, and he did. Now, Abraham tells Eliezer to put his hand under his thigh. Now, I'm not going to get into the real reason why all that done, but that was a way to swear an oath to somebody at that time, especially an oath to the children of the circumcision, was to place their hand under their thigh. All right? And again, I'm not going to get into why that was that way, but that was the custom. All right? But according to the ancient custom, this described a solemn and a serious oath. Yeah, basically. Abraham was extremely concerned that Isaac not be married to a Canaanite. It's the last thing he wanted. So he had his servant swear by the Lord. He says, I don't want him taking none of these. I don't want him taking none of these Canaanite women now. You make sure he go and get one of them women from my neighborhood. I don't want him getting one from this side of the tracks. Huh? Huh? Yeah, he didn't. He was from South Israel. Abraham was clear that he did not want Isaac. Abraham was clear that he did not want to have Isaac have a Canaanite wife. That the wife should be found from among Abraham's ancestors in Ur. That's what he wanted. Right? So, and the servant said unto him, Peradventure the woman will not be willing to follow me unto this land. Must I needs bring thy son again unto the land from whence thou comest? And Abraham said unto him, Beware thou that thou not bring my son thither again. The Lord God of heaven, which took me from my father's house and from the land of my kindred, and which spake unto me, and that sware unto me, saying, Unto thy seed will I give this land, he shall send his angel before thee, and thou shalt take a wife unto my son from thence. And the woman will not be willing, and if the woman will not be willing to follow thee, then thou shalt be clear from this my oath. Only bring not my son thither again. And the servant put his hand under the thigh of Abraham his master, and sware to him concerning that matter. Abraham apparently anticipated that he might die while his servant was gone. So he made sure that he made his instructions perfectly clear. You bring the woman here. Don't bring my son there. Don't take him there. You bring her here. Okay? If she won't come, yes.
Isaac must have really realized that his father and the servant both served God wholeheartedly.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, how can a servant go to someone who has been passed down all this land and all that and tell him what to do without Isaac saying, well, you're just a servant. You don't know what's going on. But he took heed to what this man was saying. He's listening.
Yeah.
He was listening to him anyway.
Yeah. That servant had been around Abraham a lot longer than Isaac had. So Abraham tells the servant, he said, and Eliezer says, look, I'm going to go and try to bring this woman back. And she's going to say, what, are you crazy? I don't know this guy. Don't know nothing about him. Don't know who he is. Don't know what he looks like. Don't know anything. I'm not going with you. You know, you might be trying to kidnap me. Is that a van and is that candy? Oh, okay. No, it's
You said your dog was lost where?
yeah. You said your dog was lost where? She wouldn't know. And he said, she's not going to come with me. And Abraham said, don't take my son there. He says, if she won't come with you, then I'm freeing you of your oath. You don't have to worry about it. But you don't take my son there. I said, all right. So Isaac, the son of promise, the son that God promised to give to Isaac, the one that was going to be the inheritor of all the land, never once left the promised land. He remained there his entire life. Born, raised, and died there. And his wife was to come to him. And Isaac stayed in the land of Canaan. This principle was so important that if the woman would not come with the servant, it was better for Isaac not to have a wife. If she didn't want to come, Abraham would rather he remain single, which he knew wouldn't happen because God promised that he was going to, be the father of many nations. So he knew that Isaac was going to have kids, but he would rather her not have a wife than have one of the Canaanites.
Well, that right there, that verse right there, if he had not chosen a wife, then that would have changed the course of history.
Oh yeah.
And Jacob never would have come along.
Yeah. He would have, it had to come from his ancestors' land. Abraham insisted on this. Yeah, it was literally impossible for him not to have one. Because God had made a covenant promise to Abraham and his descendants that Canaan was theirs. And he understood this promise was passed to Isaac, not to Ishmael. All right. And the servant took 10 camels of the camels of his master and departed. For all the goods of his master were in his hand. And he arose and went to Mesopotamia and unto the city of Nahor. And he made his camels to kneel down without the city by a well of water at the time of the evening, even the time that the women go out to draw water. And he said, O God, O Lord God of my master Abraham, I pray thee, send me good speed this day, and show kindness unto my master Abraham. Behold, I stand here by the well of water, and the daughters of the men of the city come out to draw water. And let it come to pass that the damsel to whom I shall say, let down this pitcher, I pray thee, that I may drink, and she shall say, drink, and I will give thy camels drink also. Let the same be she that thou hast appointed for thy servant Isaac. And thereby shall I know that thou hast showed kindness unto my master. Now, Abraham's servant, again, likely Eleazar, led a large and impressive caravan. Had 10 camels. They carried substantial riches with them, that so much so that it could be said as a poetic exaggeration that all the goods of his master were at his hand. That means he had a lot of nice stuff with him. Now the journey was long, very long. In fact, the straight line distance was some 500 miles. It's a long way to walk. Well, he probably rode the camel a little bit, but it's a long way to walk. But here it is. From Canaan up to the land of Ur. Straight line is some 500 miles. But the most common route was about 900 miles. That's the red line right there. Okay? So, as Abraham's servant arrived at his master's ancestral city, his first concern was a practical one, which was what? Yeah, water the camels. Got to water these camels. Then he had a spiritual concern, and that concern was to ask for God's guidance. Okay? Now, this is,
God.
huh?
He was fleecing God.
He was fleecing God.
If
Yeah.
you want a certain woman to do, she needs to do this, and this.
Yeah.
I mean,
This is oftentimes a bad way to discern God's will. Putting your fleece out is basically what he did, but it's a bad way to do it. Because generally speaking, circumstances alone can be a dangerous way to discern God's will. Okay? Why are circumstances alone, do you think, a bad way to discern God's will? Okay, misread. Anything else? Don't trust them. Hey? Yeah.
Well, I don't think God put a woman on earth to be a servant.
Okay.
Man. He put them on earth as equals.
Okay. But in that time, they were servants to men, but yeah, they were basically property. But
I think I didn't live back then.
Yeah, I think even livestock were more valuable than life.
yeah, sometimes they were. But the thing is, we can't rely on circumstances. And we can't rely on circumstances because sometimes, although I know none of us would ever do this, but sometimes we have a way of ignoring circumstances. If those circumstances don't meet our desired outcome, well, we tend to put them off. Okay? We will look at something, if the circumstances is favorable to what we want it to be, then we'll say, oh, okay. If it's not, then we'll say, no, not going to do that. No, that can't be from God. It's not what I want. But we will focus on the circumstances that speak for our desired outcome. If we say, God, do this, or if you want me to do this, then every light's going to be green on the way to work. And then, if you drive the way you're supposed to, and then all of a sudden you get up there and they're all green on the way to work, you say, well, that was just luck. Yeah.
I'm colorblind. Just keep going.
So we tend to ignore those that don't go along with what we our predetermined outcome that we want, but we will look at the ones that point to the pre-desired outcome that we want. There was, I think I've told y'all this before, but there's some of you that haven't heard it. But I know of people that will go out and they'll say, I prayed for God to give me a new car. God, give me a new car. God, give me a new car. They came into church one time and said, God gave me a new car. He did? Great. Let's go look at it. You went out and looked, and nice, brand new car, and beautiful car, and you say, hey, man, that is a beautiful car. And yeah, and only 72 more payments, and that baby's all mine. Well, God didn't give it to you. Well, he made it possible for me to get the down payment to put the down payment on it. But he didn't give it to you. I can assure you, if God gives you something, he ain't going to attach payments to it. Okay? So that's not how it works. But that was the desire they wanted. They wanted the car. So, because now I've got the money for a down payment, God must want me to have this car. Well, no, that's not what God's saying at all. 6 months later, he didn't have the car anymore because he couldn't afford the car payment.
Can you afford the payment?
Yeah.
Can you make that payment every month?
He couldn't do it, so the car was no longer his.
That's right.
Eh?
And God don't give and take back.
That's right. But in this case, Elijah established exactly what he was looking for before anything happened. Okay? And he wasn't making up the standard as the process unfolded. See, that's what we'll do sometime. We'll make up, we'll change the rules in the middle of the game. God, if you want me to do this, this is what you'll do. And then as you see that's about to happen, you go, also in this and this and this too. You know? And God's not going to do that. Abraham's servant asked God to show him the woman chose to be Isaac's wife. God already had a woman chosen to be Isaac's wife. And he says, I just want you to show her to me. And I want you to show her to me, and this is how I'll know it's the one that you showed her to me. Okay? And it was through an offer to provide water for his 10 camels. Now Elijah was wise enough to ask for a sign that was remarkable, but in human terms was possible. So that's what a lot of times we ask for, things that are supernatural. God, if this is what you want, when I walk out the door in the morning, then and I'm facing to the west, and it's morning time, the sun's going to be coming up from the west. You know, we're asking for miracles to happen, and God's not going to do that to show us something. Now, Elijah, what he did is he asked for something that was perfectly reasonable within the realm of human expectation, something that humans could do. Okay? He didn't tempt God for asking him to send fire from heaven. Okay? He didn't say, okay, God, if that's the woman, when I leap off this cliff, you're going to keep me safe. Because all that would have done would either wound up dead. Okay? In praying the prayer he prayed, there was a sense in which Elijah set the odds against finding somebody. Because it would take a remarkable woman to volunteer for that tedious task. Now, remember, Elijah didn't say that he would ask her to do this. He did say, let down your pot and give me something to drink. And while you're at it, would you water my camels? That's not what he did. He said, send me the woman that is to be Isaac's wife. Send her to me, and when I ask her for a drink of water, she'll say, sure, here, have a drink of water, and hey, man, while you're getting a drink, I'm going to water you 10 camels for you. That's a pretty tedious task to do. Okay? Yeah, Elijah wasn't demanding that she do it. She volunteers to do it.
There's a difference.
Yeah, and volunteering. Huh? That's Ann. Yeah. That's Ann.
If I want to do it, I'll do it. If I don't,
Now we don't think that. Now we may not think that watering 10 camels is that big of a deal, right?
I don't know how to water a camel.
Water a camel the same way you'd water a horse or anything else.
Put water if you don't.
Most time, we say, we'll pour that in there and do that. But when you understand that a camel may drink up to 20 gallons of water at a time, that's just one camel. Watering 10 camels was at least an hour of pretty hard work.
Is there a lake or something around?
They were at a well. No, they were at a well. She would have had to continually be drawing water out of this well. Yeah. Yeah, about 200 gallons of water out of there.
And isn't it the wells that they actually had to throw the bucket down there with a rope, pull it back
Yeah.
up, take it over there, pull
Yeah.
it in, go back over there, throw it back? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of work.
I guess we need to just shut up and suck it up.
Yeah.
They had it rough back then.
Now, yeah.
Wasn't
Yeah.
Sonic they
Yeah. There wasn't a Sonic you can do. So here's your big old tall glass of get over it, and let me give you a straw so you can suck it up too, okay?
It better last you a week or a month.
But what's one thing you don't notice, or that you notice that Elijah didn't do and didn't ask God about? Something that he wasn't even concerned about. Huh? He just wanted to make sure it was from the land of his ancestors. Okay? Didn't do because he figured that if she does what he has said to do, that she'll go back with him. He didn't care one bit about what she looked like. He didn't say, "Send me a beautiful woman," with long black hair, brown eyes, or green eyes, and that. He didn't care what she looked like. Eh? He didn't want a woman with just outer beauty. He wanted a woman of character.
Well, it's too bad, men don't look at it like that nowadays, really.
Oh, there's some men that do.
Well, yeah, but
But it's but he wasn't worried about what the outside looked like. Of course, she wound up being a beautiful woman anyway, but he wanted a woman of character, and he wanted a woman that God had chosen.
yeah.
It wasn't someone that Isaac came out and said, "Oh, she's cute. Maybe I'll ask her out for coffee or something." It wasn't one of those things. Who was the woman God wants Isaac to have? That's the woman I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Okay? All right, we're going to end it right there. And we're going to talk about Rebecca coming and meeting Elijah next week. Cliffhanger, anticipation. Okay? Any questions, comments, concerns, amens, omes? All right. Thank you for joining us today. We pray you were blessed by the broadcast. If you have a prayer request or questions about Solid Rock Tabernacle, please visit our website at www.solidrocktabernacle.org. That's www.solidrocktabernacle.org. On behalf of the pastors and congregation here at Solid Rock Tabernacle, we pray you have a blessed week, and we invite you to join us in person or on one of our future broadcasts.